feel like somebody's doing this to your throat when you go to vocalize. Over the years, you've probably been told to use straws, balloons, to hum. But the question is, when do you use that stuff and what is that actually doing to your airway? The difference between humming and what a straw does is vast. And so in this series, we're gonna talk about common vocal warm-ups, when to use what they're actually doing, and how to get the most out of these different tools for vocal success. All right, so the theme of our series is how do we get away from this? Okay, how do we give you more space in your airway? How do we create an optimal starting position for vocalizing? How do we get the best kind of space in our airway possible? Do we put a straw in your mouth? Do we hum? What's the best fit and why? So first of all, we want to think about hyoid position. Okay, the hyoid is like a steering wheel for space in your airway. And what I mean by that is that if the hyoid is raised, okay, because my suprahyoid muscles are a little bit more contracted, it's as if I'm swallowing. Okay, when I swallow, you can kind of feel this when we swallow, the hyoid goes up. Okay, it's going to lessen space in the airway, and that's useful in some cases, but not for starting. Okay, we want a hyoid that's kind of optimally positioned between high and low. Okay, whereas we also have the infrahyoid muscles. So when I open my mouth, when I breathe in, these muscles are going to contract a little bit more to open the airway and give me a little bit more space. Okay, these muscles are also useful when we can get them to co-contract with the abs in order to provide us a little bit more space in the airway. Okay, and so what a straw is doing is creating a little bit more of a constricted shape. When I close my mouth and when I blow, okay, that's going to put a little bit more compression and force through the airway. That's going to cause a little bit more constriction. That's going to be a little bit more suprahyoid-esque, which is useful sometimes, but for our purposes this week, not so much. Whereas when I hum in a lower tone, that's going to help to upregulate the infrahyoids a little bit more. It's going to help to open the space in the airway. So there are a couple tricks that we're going to share this week alongside humming exercises to help to open things up, to kind of deconstrict the airway. So I go from here to here and give you the best situation possible. Lower down that hyoid to open things up when you feel constricted. All right, so when we're talking about creating the optimal shape of the airway, we want to kind of attack it from the top down and the bottom up. And the way we do that is the pull of the diaphragm as we inhale is going to naturally help to open the airway. But then the contraction of our abdominals is going to help to close the rib cage without the muscles of the neck or the voice box having to over close everything and kind of kick in too much. So this is kind of taking a little bit of pressure off of that. So meaning we're not over closing everything as we exhale, which is a big deal. So a way that we do that is we're going to incorporate a humming exercise with an abdominal exercise. The other thing that I can do is that when I raise my chin up, okay, when I come into extension, that's naturally going to open our airway up, okay? So I like to do these exercises with a neck nod because it's gonna help us to open the airway as we look up, and then it's gonna help to appropriately close the airway as we look down, okay? So long story short, we're gonna do a plank against the wall. So I'm pushing my shoulder blades apart here, okay? As we exhale, I'm gonna push away from the wall. It's gonna use my abs to have to close, or my abs to have to close my rib cage, okay? And up top, what we're gonna do is inhale as we look up, hum as we look down and push away from the wall. Inhale and we look up. We exhale and we push away. So initially, I'm using a very low pitch because that's just the best way to kind of keep things open. But as you go along, you can kind of change pitches. You can go, raise or lower. You can kind of modulate. That's another way to help to kind of familiarize or kind of change the shape in your airway in different ways, something that I recommend. So again, shoulder blades apart. Think about pushing away from the wall as we're humming, we're exhaling. Inhaling, looking up. Slowly. Give that a go. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, so this next one came just from experimentation, completely my own experiment here, but I found this to be very useful. And I noticed that over the last few weeks, my throat constricted when I was sick. I had a cold, a throat thing. I was clearing my throat a lot. I had a lot of tightness, especially in one side of my neck or one side of my airway. And so what I've been doing is what I call an inverted swallow. Okay, so we know that when we go like this, it's going to open up our throat, our airway to some degree. So what I like to do is, my logic is that when we're swallowing from a more open place, it's going to reestablish a little bit better swallow, as opposed to doing it from a situation where I'm looking down. We look down so much anyway at our phones and everything else. That's going to close this area off. So what I like to do to begin with is just take a small sip of water. Come down and swallow. That's kind of like progression one. So gargling, I feel like opens everything up to some degree. Gives me a little bit more space, a little bit more advanced, and a little bit harder for me is you take a small sip. And attempt to swallow while looking up without squeezing or constricting. That's one that takes a little bit of time. I'd recommend kind of starting here and then swallowing and then following up with that once you have a better kind of handle on that part. But I found that to be very useful, especially in the morning when I was sick. I was getting kind of mucus and stuff in there. That really helped me. So it's another quick way to open things up. Give that a go.